My name is Jarkko Malviniemi, and I come from a company called Siili Solutions, originating from Finland, operating in 7 other countries. So we are a technology consultancy, basically. And today I'm gonna concentrate on a topic like how to design human-centered and trustworthy AI solutions. So basically an AI which is good for humans and good for society. And this content basis on our research. We've been part in a consortium called AIGA, which has been a project running on a couple of years with a couple of universities, a few other consultancies and organizations. And the goal has been to identify like how to design and develop like ethically and legally acceptable solutions, like AI solutions. And our work has been mainly concentrating on this, like AI transparency and explainability, also these governance models and auditing approaches. And our team on Siili side has been like a multidisciplinary team working like part-time during the timeline. So what is then the challenge why this human-centric approach and trustworthy AI is sort of like needed? So we know that the AI powers our life continuously, helping to make better decisions, maybe even more fair decisions. In certain cases, it helps us to discover new things. It helps us to design and develop complex products, what we already heard, or solve complex problems, what Laura mentioned. And then it can help to manage the processes in the daily life. So it doesn't come like without challenges. So these solutions often can persuade people to buy things, enforce some discrimination, or it can sometimes drive through the people, or it can target the different weaknesses of humans. And sometimes we don't have any clue like why this happened, or we can have some clue, but it's not very open, and it's especially not very open for the ecosystem or the surroundings to the developer or engineer or scientist. And to address these challenges, we know there's a big movement on building up and developing different principles, agreeing on different things. Standardization is developing on how to build best practices to avoid these issues. And for example, these principles are getting very popular, and new ones are coming every day. So we've seen that it's, of course, a very good starting point, but we see a lot of gap, like how to apply these principles in action. So these topics are rather new, which don't provide much like a practical like methods for a designer or for a developer to approach properly. There's of course lots of advancement, for example, in certain areas like model explainability, which has had these certain libraries for a long time. But in general, like how it impacts a user of an AI solution, it's rather new. So there exist some approaches, for example, this human-centered AI approach, which in contrast to trying to achieve like an ultimate machine autonomy or optimizing to the far end, the accuracy or performance of our algorithm, it taps into this experience of using, the explainability of the system, and this meaningful human control for these things. And the goal is, of course, to empower and amplify the human. And then the second concept, which is getting quite mature already, is this Trustworthy AI approach, which basically builds on top of the idea that people will cooperate with the AI solution if they trust it, and which also then enables these organizations to deploy these solutions in practice. And what is it then all about? It seems to combine a lots of different perspectives, which are quite well received in general. So everybody talks about these ethical requirements, also combines these technical requirements like explainability, robustness of the solution, etc. And depending on the case, it can expand to the other like requirements in a context. What we have found out in our research is that when investigating this like a common term that people need to trust on the AI solution, this human perspective is not known very well. And there's, however, some research done in a past few years which taps on these two topics, especially like explainability and causability. And this explainability is sort of the transparency which looks from the solution or system perspective, and causability is how people then interpret the solution. And the studies show that these have a positive influence on this explainability topic. So what we have come up is that to help us to not only design these solutions but also assess, for example, existing solutions, we have built a simple framework which looks from the human perspective. It's based on this like normative philosophy about these concepts like utility and deontology and virtue ethics, and then adds this transparency layer. So how it works basically that the human experience should feel that that particular AI solution, there's a good something good will happen when it's applied or when it's used. Also, business can think about that. It's useful. It can, for example, save this or be good in comparing these resources the algorithm needs and the benefit it creates. And then the ethical aspects is important, that it shows that these intentions like are good. It's for a good purpose. And then this compliance aspect means that a human or user understands these actors and practice and feels them reliable. And then the transparency means that there's some evidence. It might be in a user experience or such how it's received. So how then to take this into action? We know that like a governing an AI solution and these aspects requires a continuous attention. So it needs to tap over the whole life cycle of the machine learning life cycle. And why? The reason is that you never know which part of this let's say trustworthiness umbrella can break up and can cause some, for example, unintended risks, or it might cause some unexpected experience from user point of view. So how we have applied this in practice, we have basically used like two tools in a combination. One is this our own approach on using this framework, and we have developed like a small like interview method on top of it. I'll shortly tell about that. And another which we have a very good experience is this Google's research, which taps into this, like how to develop the experience, like finding out the critical moments, then turning them to the opportunities, concentrating on possible error situations and explainability, and then finally also imagine this or work on the topics of how to enable the feedback loops and the human control. Our approach is meant to work, or what's needed is that we need to have some sort of even prototype or existing solution what we can benchmark. So it's assessment for something that exists. And it bases on this interview, which contains 4 sets of open-ended questions. And we can apply this to all parties around a solution, users, the producers of that solution, and business stakeholders if they exist. And it aims to assess really this, that did a user who is using a solution understand the reasons behind how the AI works or so on. It's not the technical explanation maybe, but it's like how they perceive it. And then is it like enough, are these results or decisions enough for them to follow up a clear action? And then like how this like a compliance part was felt. Did they feel trusted on the solution? And what this can bring then up is that we get a lots of findings which we can turn into insights and try to figure out these improvement ideas, which can then end up to the product development. So we have piloted this method, for example, internally. We have a product or service called Siili Seeker, which helps us to find the best possible like consultant for a given task. Like, for example, these job requirements or task requirements. And so it looks up this all data, like these curriculums we have of our people, and then matches the best candidates. So we evaluated this with this assessment and for example found out that we did 10 interviews and then extracted the results. So for example, from the usefulness of the solution point of view, we had a finding that this service doesn't take into account these skills in a sense that where it would be best applied. So we have the existing model where different consultants work on for different customers in different projects, and it doesn't take into account that. So if the solution would take into account those aspects, we could find out this kind of like a win-win situation, which would benefit more our customers and also our consultants. That consultants would have a meaningful job which about or around the skills or competence they like to work, which would then better fit for the customer. So it would probably generate better end results. And then in the end, these improvements can be also, or we can derivate like a more generic design principles on top of it, or it might be like a non-functional requirement or other requirement for a project. So that sums up like what kind of options we have, and one like a real practice we have applied. So thank you very much.